Hello, ladies and gentlemen.
Hello.
Good evening. Oh, fantastic. Sorry for the mix up. We're already live. Ladies and gentlemen, good evening once again.
Good evening.
Like we usually say, it's another new dawn of another new day to have my brother here with me today. He is an associate lecturer at the University of Bedfordshire. Aside being a lecturer, he's also into digital marketing and a wide experience in customer relationship. So tonight, well, I just want you to pay attention closely to every part of his experience that he's going to be sharing, which I know is going to be beneficial to us. Like I used to tell him, we can throw banter about Nigerian politics, etc. But the good thing is that he's someone who dearly loves Nigeria and who wants to see the best bet, the best hand overseeing the affair of Nigeria. My brother Joshua, you're welcome to our live show for the
Thank,
new
thank you very
program
much for
I
having
just
me.
began a month ago called Japa Series, the new beginning. Especially, we decided to come on this platform to enlighten our people who are moving in here and those who have intention of moving. So, from your experience, how did you migrate to the UK?
First of all, I want to say a very big thank you for my brother, Joe. It's a pleasure, yeah, you having me on this platform. And just a quick recap. I am not just into digital marketing. I'm also into blockchain and
Mm,
decentralized finance as well. Right. And to go straight to your question, how I migrated to the UK. It's been a long drive. It's been a long journey. Right. I remember far back as 2014, just immediately after President Jonathan's election. Right. I was among the few people who got sponsorship, scholarship, presidential scholarship.
okay.
I was sponsored to come do masters, and I came into the UK 2015. I remember precisely October, right? And I got admission in University of Bedfordshire to study information system and business management. So that was what brought me to the UK. So I came to the UK through the student route. If that answers the question.
Oh, okay. Beautiful. Another thing I want you to talk about, how has been your experience since being in the UK since roughly 7 years now, or 8 years, if I'm right? You've been in the UK for the last 8 years.
Yes.
How have you been able to integrate yourself? What's helped you? What do you think you've been able to? Where have you been able to achieve some of your? How were you able to achieve your set goals within the frame of the UK settings?
Okay, thank you very much for that question. First of all, I will talk about the cultural shock I observed, right? When I came into the UK, I thought I was a tough man. I thought I was very strong. I could go anywhere and stay anywhere. But I came in, and after 6 months, I started feeling homesick.
Mm,
So I could not, the opportunities of speaking to family in person was not there. My mother, my father, my relatives, nobody, was around to. There are some certain times you become emotional and you want a family member who you can talk to, either in person, right? So I had that feeling of feeling homesick, and another thing I experienced was the cultural difference, right? Especially starting from the class, where a whole lot of people, had different mindsets, they had different orientation, and I found it difficult to really integrate at first, and that really affected me, to be honest, in some ways, right? But over time, I overcame that. That is just the good news. Overcoming that was a very overcoming that was a very positive thing for myself, because while I was feeling homesick, while I was affected by the differences, um, culturally, ways of perception, way of reasoning, it affected myself and my performance as well, even in class. So over time, I became very, very well oriented, in the environment where I was. And I could tell that I was a bit settled. Then, just to talk you through the whole process, right? It was difficult for me to take chips and chicken and chips as a meal. Having come from a culture that eats, good food like egusi and eba or jollof rice. So it was quite funny when people say, let's go for lunch. And we'll go for lunch, which is buy chips and chicken. I said, this is not food. Wait a minute. Then are we still going to the restaurant? Right. But over time, I just discovered this is just enough. You just need to get used to it. Another thing that swept my feet was I almost died of cold. Right. So there was that need for me to know how to check the news and know
Mm,
what the news is talking about the weather. Right. Sometimes it could be cold. Sometimes it could be very windy. Sometimes it could be very sunny. But it is very important you have your app. And if you're traveling, you know what the weather is saying at that particular time. So those were some of those things. Back home now, you don't check weather. It's raining. It's sunny, it's sunny. Right. And the third one was moving from point A to point B.
mm.
I was
Transportation.
confused. I was confused with the buses, with the timetables. I was confused with the train. I was confused with the, joining train from, like, let's say from London to Bedfordshire or to Bedford. All the different uh, Piccadilly line, Circle line, and all that. It took me a while, but and when I discovered that you could even use an app to educate yourself faster on how to move from A to B and also navigate your way around, I was like shocked. I said it took me months for me to know that, right? And the last one was buying African groceries, as in normal shopping, right?
Mm.
Back home you could easily go around and do your shopping. But I got here, you see Asians everywhere doing businesses. And I see very limited shops that are owned by Africans. I
African.
think where I stay, I only have one that is well pronounced, which is Abams. So it took me a while to know where to sell, those groceries, African groceries, and I was able to identify the place. And over time, I went back to my normal African food. So it took me a while, and I was able to scale that through.
Thank you, my brother, for really expanding on your wealth of experience over these few years in the UK or 8 years in the UK. Like you've said, you've talked about the food shock that you experienced. Chips and chicken is like the national food for the the country. They can eat
Yes.
it from Monday till Sunday. They don't mind. And apart from that, also they have their chicken. So as an African who are well brought up with pounded yam and egusi and eba and edikaiko and all kind of our soup. When you get here and you don't get to see them, that's going to be a very strong shock for anyone. And like you said, issue of transportation too, having to know how to use the map, the Google map, or even the one on the train station was very, very difficult for most people. But at least if one can have them on their app or on their phone rather, it will go a long way on easing the burden of commuting within the UK. So, what motivated you to become an associate lecturer in the
Well, I
UK?
think I will have to start the story from the beginning, right? Honestly, I would give you kudos for creating such a platform where people can say or tell their personal story. And the take home for me for this particular um, talk show or podcast, if I may say, is people listening to how how you have overcome your challenges and also connect to that personal story. We have differences in terms of our personal journey in the UK. So I said I came in 2015 and I started as a master's student. So the plan was for me to do my master's and go back to Nigeria, right? And I did finish my master's. I graduated. I went back. So going back to Nigeria, that was the dream because I am actually one of those young Nigerians who believe so much that Nigeria can be better, right? So I went back. I was actually employed with Federal Ministry of Communication, and you know, uh, was working with a department known as Electronic Government Department. So we were in charge of creating a digital platform for Nigeria. So I was working with NICDA, I was working with NICOMSAT, working with NCC. We had trainings with China, we had training with South Korea. We were all, having this project here and there just to make sure we have a one-stop platform where Nigerians could have access to government services without queuing up or without
Mm,
traveling from their respective location coming to cities or government offices. So as a level 9 staff, I with master's degree in the UK, I went to my manager. I said, I noticed we're just still doing manual data storage. We're doing still manual data collection. And in most cases, we'll have repetition of this whole thing. And we'll
yep.
have duplicates of data collections at different department, different level. So anytime we want to collect staff data, we have to do it over again. So I came up with a suggestion. Can we, see how to introduce a digital platform that can collect staff data, store staff data, and we try and make sure to keep it safe. There was a whole of resistance from him, right?
Mm.
For no reason, I was sending him emails. I can send you correspondence. He was not responding to any of the emails. I gave him a proposal that spelled out how we could do it in less than 8 months. It was not adopted. It was not even reviewed, and I didn't even get a feedback. So I was more or less useless. I only come to. Sorry, I don't know if you're going to dig this, but I was just coming to work and I wasn't doing anything. And that's not my personality. I saw problem and I felt I could provide solution to that problem, but person who was ahead of me
Wasn't ready for it.
wasn't ready for it. I only saw loads of resistance. You get. So that was what motivated me to come back to the UK. So why did I come back? I came back to do a research on how to adopt electronic governance. So I applied for a research, a PhD,
I think that's
and
what you're working on at the moment.
that's what I'm currently working on right now. So for I applied for an admission to do a research on electronic governance. So I wanted to look into how data protection and privacy affect the adoption of electronic governance. And, it will interest you to know as far back as 2015, 2016, we never had a functional working website for
Mm.
any of the government ministries.
Even till date.
Most
Even
of them
till
were
date.
just most of them were just static. You can barely see meaningful information, or some of them were not even transactional at that point. So you cannot even make payments, you cannot even download forms to fill in. For example, if you were to be looking for driving license, you can't do that online. You have to go in person to those offices to do such thing. So my interest was to do a research and find out how we can adopt electronic governance and make recommendation to policymakers. Uh, I was lucky. I got a supervisor. One of my supervisors is from Germany, and the second one is
Mm.
from America. They've been very wonderful. So since 2018 till date, it's something I've been researching on. There's no question you ask me about electronic governance. I don't know. I know the countries that have done well. You know, country like Estonia, Japan, South Korea. These countries, they've used electronic governance to eliminate corruption, to eliminate, you know, things like bureaucracies
Yeah, bottlenecks. Yeah.
and all that, also of nepotism. So, if I'm to talk about the advantages of electronic governance, I think I will have to spend over 2 to 3 hours talking about it. But however, that was what motivated me to come to the UK. And well, I would tell you that it has not been bed of roses. It's been full of challenges. So I had to pass my PP1, which is my first year examination, before I could go to the next stage. So immediately I passed my PP1, which is the first year examination, my supervisor approached me, said, Joshua, are you interested in teaching some of the courses? Said he just realized I could help the department. I said, of course. But deep inside me, I said, see, I've not taught before. How am I going to manage to teach students at this level? So when I asked the question, he enrolled me on a training. And after the training, that was when I became an associate lecturer. And ever since then, I think I've been teaching different courses and I've been moderating those courses as well. Hello.
Fantastic. What what a way. Why would I define you now a pathfinder? They rejected you in Nigeria, and here UK has found you, and you are
Cool.
doing amazing and doing great for the country. I'm very sure there are a lot of heads around that are spread across the country that if they are in Nigeria today, they will have been able to shape the destiny of the country. But because we have a system in place that resists changes, so that's why the country is at the level at which it is at the moment. That is it's very. I'm very glad to hear how you've been able to navigate this path into lecturing. All the time that we're able to speak on phone or even chat, you've never made mention of it until when I had to look it up. And like, oh, this man has something to give our people who are coming down here. They should be able to. You should be able to be a reference point for them. So, like, I'm glad to hear that from your scholarship, you've been able to maneuver yourself and entrench yourself in the education system of the UK. So, are there any cultural difference or norms you think as an African should be able to adopt or adapt themselves into when they move into UK?
There's a lot. There is a lot. I will, okay, I will address it in two different ways, right?
Okay.
And if you check the statistics, you will also know that So many Nigerian marriages in the UK, seems to be very seems to have a very negative uh, outcome because sometimes when we come into the country with those culture, especially for people who are married, especially for my own gender, the male folks,
Mm.
you begin to hear where you say, "I am the boss of this house. I am the head of this family," and all that. Those things are culture. And according to Hofstede, when you compare a power distance culture with an individualism culture, you begin to see
Yep.
the difference. It is allowed for us to practice what we practice back in Africa, provided you are in Africa. But when you come to the UK, you need to understand that there is a cultural shift, and you need to be very much aware of that because it's very important. And one of the key things I will say is, as partners, it is good for you to understand that you need to be uh, you need to be transparent, and not just transparent. You'll also need to begin to share, responsibilities equally. There is no tag on anybody that you must be the one to do the cooking. And all my life,
Whoever brings the breads, just
the bread,
whoever brings the bread, you bring it for the table so we can
the bread,
share.
the breadwinner. So I think that was one of the culture shift I I observed. Right, there are people who come into the UK and they just tied up with that African culture,
Mindset.
right, or
Yeah.
that mindset. But it becomes very, very flexible. When you come in, you understand this is the situation. We have to show responsibility. Is it that you're working, then I'm home doing the cooking, you're doing school runs, and you know that's kind of thing. I also want to go into religion, right?
Mm.
I was this person who was attending a particular church. I leave on Sundays. I leave the house as a worker. I leave the house around 7, and I will be in church till 7. See, don't get me. I'm a Christian, and I'm not here to criticize people who are religious or people who are Christian. But when I came to the UK, I saw the difference. People go to church on Sunday, but they barely spend 2 hours in church. And do you know what? They the preaching or what they learn from church within that 2 hours or within that 3 hours, you know, appears to be more significant than somebody who goes to church and spends over 8 to 12 hours. It was a cultural shift for me. I've never seen, apart from church, Living Faith, that runs multiple services. Right?
Yep.
I think I was not really aware of any church that was doing less than 3 hours services. And when it comes to church, you see where they collect first offering, second offering, third offering. So those things, I never saw them. Offering became very optional, and nobody was standing in that pulpit motivating you that you must give, you must sow
Exactly.
first fruits, you must do all that. It never happened. You see, these churches, they were waxing strong, they were organizing events, rolling out charity programs, just you know with ease without stressing anybody. I remember back home where pastor comes in front of the pulpit, read all sort of verses and tell you you need to sow a seed. And he doesn't leave the pulpit until you sow that seed, calling all sort of altar calls just to make sure he achieves a particular thing. So I think those some of the things I've mentioned are some of the things, I never believed, you know, could happen because it was actually my first time of traveling abroad. Right. And I will also talk about management generally in the society. Right. I came to the UK to understand the importance of civic education. You see a small child of 7 years, when he gets to the pedestrian crossing, he is well aware and well educated that he needs to press either the pedestrian light and wait for the light to turn green for him to pass. So
Yeah.
this the basic education has been designed in a way that children are taught, certain things in the society that they need to know. How to call the police when they're in distress, how to understand the traffic lights, how to call emergency numbers. You know, it seems to be lacking in our system. Correct me if I'm wrong, but while growing up,
You're
I
very
never
right.
knew some of those
You're
things.
right. You're very right.
So these were some of the, you know, culture change I observed.
You're very right. I think we all have that experience, all kind of different cultural shock over the years. But even as we make progresses, we tend to learn from some of these things which we have carried on and we're able to pass it on to people. Like the aspect of church services. And first time I went to church, I didn't see, what's it called? I didn't see any basket being moved from one corner of one end to another. I'm like, wait, the pastor finished ministering. They didn't call for offering. He didn't call for tithes. But when we went for a particular meeting, like a quarterly meeting, he said, "Oh, the church earned over 5,000." And I said, "Wait a minute. How did they realize this money? Because all the people have been attending church in this building, I've never seen them call for tithe and offering. How?" And I had to speak with one of the leaders. I said, "You see, in this place, we don't want financial issues to be a burden to anybody. It is because we get to meet different people every time we have service in this building. So we don't usually tell people to bring anything. So whoever God lays in their hearts to support what we are doing here, the church bank account is there, the box is there, and this church they are into even giving people cup of tea, biscuits, all sort of cake every Sunday or every meeting." And I'm like, wait, so God can actually bless a congregation without having to hammer on the wall that if you don't bring this, if you don't bring that. That was my own huge shock. And I told my wife, I said, "See, you know what? I don't think I'm going to entertain this Nigerian system that over the years have crowded my thinking faculty. I need to move away." Even when I moved from where I was in Lowton down to, I still had to maintain that kind of settings whereby you are not pushed into a box that if you don't give to God, then there won't be blessing for you. But because you just need to learn around your environment and what's happening around you, how are the people living? What so if these people can have this, if these people cannot have this, and they don't have to go through this, why me? So why is it because my color is different? Shebi is the same God. So some of these things were what one of the things that really shocked me, but they've been able to help me to stay grounded that actually I am doing the right thing. Is because most of us back home we don't get to understand some of this things. That's why we think it's the right thing. They were never the right thing. So I know we've talked a whole lot about culture, your job experience, and and the level at which you are at the moment. What kind of I want you to quickly share an insight before we go because we've actually gone beyond our scheduled time. The insight on jobs for newcomers. What kind of job do you think is available, and where do you think they can um, source their first-time jobs? Like in terms of bringing into the perspective UK work experience and all that. So
Okay, thank you for that question. See, honestly, I really want to take this question very serious because over the years, we Africans, especially Nigerians, we've actually underestimated what we can do in the UK. And most of the times, I think the narrative is when you come to the UK, you just pursue the healthcare job. Right. And we are not really aware of other opportunities out there. And I think that is what I really want to clear. See, there are loads of opportunity in the UK that is one of the advantage. That's one of the advantages of coming to the UK, right? It all depends on who you're listening to. If you listen to somebody who is advising you to do care, you're going to start with healthcare job. Is it that you go to care homes where you do personal care? Well, I think the young Nigerians, the young Africans now, we're actually venturing into IT. We are becoming data analysts, we're becoming business analysts, we're becoming data scientists, we're becoming project managers. These are the area data. We're becoming cloud uh, engineers, data
Yeah,
security, and all that. This is where the real money is, and most of the times it even allows you to work from home, gives you flexibility, right?
that's true.
So the question is, who are you listening to? If you're listening to an average person in the UK, definitely you will start from the warehouse. That was my story. So I listened to an average UK, Nigerian person who said, you need to start with Amazon. I started from Amazon. 2, 3 months into Amazon, I had issues with my leg. I had issues with my leg. I could not stand for an hour because of the stress working in Amazon. Imagine when you're working for 12 hours with just 15 minutes break. But before you even get to where you get a cup of tea or a cup of coffee, your 5 minutes is already gone. So you're having 10 minutes
10 minutes
left.
left.
Before you go to the toilet to ease yourself, your break is over. And they have a system that monitors you. It can tell when you're not moving
Mm,
or when you're not doing anything. You see your line manager coming to you and asking you, what is the problem? Right. So I started from the average warehouse where I worked in Amazon, and it was terrible, to be very frank with you. Working in a warehouse and waking up the next day to go to a class, it wasn't funny. Right. So, but that is where somebody can start. But these days, we're beginning to advise people to do some certification on SQL, on Power BI, on Excel. If you have these certifications, you have this experience, you've done live projects in these areas, you can get a job, you know, with NHS. You can get a job with some of these big companies to become a data analyst, to become a business analyst or a project manager, and those jobs pays you well, right? And just a quick one. I'm not trying to discourage you, but I'm just trying to, express myself what I've observed over the years. It is very important that when you come into the UK, you also uh, have that mindset that things doesn't work automatic. Most companies requires at least 6 months experience within the UK before they can get you a job. So the advice would be you can start anywhere, but you just have to dream big. You shouldn't just settle for healthcare assistant. You shouldn't
anything.
just
Yeah,
settle for um, warehouse jobs. There are loads of opportunities you can get while in the UK.
fantastic. And that's the reason why I had to bring that question into perspective because over the years, most of the people I encounter are like, oh, this is how we started, or this is where we came from. So you can do that, you can do that. I understand that we all have bills to pay. Immediately you're stepping your foot in the country, there's that urgency for you to start looking after yourself because there's no free lunch
Of course.
anywhere. Well, I think people needs to really set the goals, what they want to achieve. And for UK employers, we always look forward to see that you have sort of experience working in UK environment. I'll quickly add to what my brother have said. Prepare your CV, tailor it around your area of competence, things you are good at. There are jobs for everybody. There are a whole lot of jobs. In fact, it was in process of me changing jobs here and there. I got to know that wait a minute, this is not the end of the world. there's still options here. So what have I been doing? So don't wait until you are even out of job before you start looking for job. See, let me give you a shocker. There's going to be what's it called, a rejection of your application. Over 100 rejection of application. Why? Because your name, your background is going to play all sort against you. But when one person gives you that opportunity, don't trivialize it. Show him that you are a professional. Show him that you are professional. I remember when we were leaving my my last job at BPHA, is a housing. My manager kept saying, "Job, you are so professional." That's his word. In fact, he literally went to buy me a gift card, and when I checked the amount, I was, I was shocked. For a white man, ordinarily he will not give you a gift card that has amount you need to spend. All he could give you might possibly a paper, a card paper. But this one went beyond and did that. So I knew that okay, my time in this place was very was got impactful, even with the way he he was able to manage me through that process because it was a very stressful process for every of our cis colleagues that were made redundant. But after that, I knew that there's so much more that we don't know in this UK that we just think is only healthcare. Healthcare is just one aspect. There are
Exactly.
jobs in housing, there are jobs in technology, in tech, there are jobs in even the security, the military aspect of this country. They requires a whole lot of us. Immediately you are 3 years in this country, you are qualified. Join the civil service. I know the NHS might not have money to like meet your update, but there's opportunity for progression. And when you start making those baby step of 2 years, 3 years into the the system, other opportunities will open up for for anyone. My brother, I think we've really had a very good time here today, but I think last that I want you to quickly keep in. How can people really manage their documentations? Like keep an eye on their visa expiration and all that. What do they need to do before so that they will not fall victim of overstayers? Because I've hear people experiencing that, and especially students in terms of they are also the working hours. Where so you can just summarize that so that I won't take your time.
Yeah, honestly, we live in a country where law and order, needs to be respected. And my candid advice would be that you make sure you obey the law. The law says if you're on 20 hours, just obey the 20 hours, right? It's very important. I've seen people who have applied for visa based on post-study visa, and they were rejected on the fact that over the time they worked more than they allowed 20 hours, and that affected them. And in terms of documentation is very important. I will speak from the student aspect, right? I was a vice president union development, University of Bedfordshire.
Yeah,
I saw students who were affected because some students never knew when their passport ran out, is expired. And when they come for registration and submitting a passport that is expired becomes a problem. Right? You need to be ahead of this thing. And students have problem with reading their emails and replying emails. So if you're in this country, you need to have that culture of knowing the fact that the best way to communicate is not via the phone or is not coming to the university to see the person physically. The best channel of communication is via the email. You need to check your student emails on regular basis. I've seen situations where emails were sent after 3 months, there was no reply. And the student in question felt that she's been asked to move. Uh, so the bone of contention was she wanted to transfer to a different course. And international office asked her to come to the office to clarify why she wants to move. After 3 months, she did not see the email. There was no reply. Her visa was withdrawn, and she was asked to go back to Nigeria. So that was when I was a vice president union development. I had to intervene and I had to go through the correspondence. So where messages were sent and she never replied. Though that situation was rectified at the end of the day. So you should understand the channel of communication and understand the fact that it's not until you come to the university to meet a staff and talk to that, that is possible in Nigeria. But here, the best communication channel it's your email. And secondly, it is also important for you as an international student. I said I will speak from the angle of student. As an international student, it is
Yeah.
very important for you to save money and put it aside, either for your extension of visa or for your renewal, whatever. Then there's been cases where students' visa is running out. They don't have money, they don't have savings, and they begin to plan to borrow. Over the years, I've observed that nobody wants to borrow you money in the UK. Even to give you £50 is difficult. So one of the advice would be, as a student who is an international student, it is very important that even when you go for those shifts, you do those monthly collections or weekly collections, which I totally condemn, because when we start getting paid on weekly basis, we tend to forget a whole lot of things, right? I advise that you save money for your visa applications, for your visa extension, for your renewal, and all that. It will save you a whole lot of stress. That's my take on that.
Thank you, my brother Joshua. Joshua is an associate lecturer at the University of Bedfordshire, and I can tell you that we'll have a lot to unpack in this session, but because of time, we'll put an end to it. I think in the subsequent months or days ahead, we might bring him back again to give us some nugget for those who are already here and those who are still making plans to join us in the UK. Thank you so much. I truly appreciate your presence and every bit that you've shared with us today. I think it's going to help a whole lot of people, not minding their tribes, not minding their what they believes in, but because these things are things that is required in this country. So I strongly believe that if they apply it, they will be able to what's it called, adjust and ease in smoothly into the system. Thank you, my brother. Do
And
enjoy the rest of the
I want to say a very big thank you for having me. And to be very honest with you, I will be happy to come back to talk on topics that are very interesting to me, especially the one I talked about, how to help Nigerians navigate through securing IT jobs. That will be something that will be very interesting. Thank you so much for what you're doing. You're very passionate.
definite, definitely. I will look into that. Will plan it ahead of time. Today we had to like just rush and come and arrange or come and speak like because we've over the time our time schedule has not been able to make videos. But thank you for coming. I truly appreciate that. Thanks, bro.
Thank you
Thanks.
for having me.
Enjoy the rest of your day. Okay, to all our viewers, um, time we call it a day. Till I see you, till I come your way again. I remain NSC. One love, guys. Cheers. Bye.